Hey, thank you for downloading this bonus video. In this bonus video, we'll deconstruct 4 more salad photographs, and all of these photographs are from Panera. So some are from their menu. I have actually a whole bunch of them. I have some. Every time I go there, I'm picking up a menu. If it's new, if it has new photographs. So we'll analyze those. I'll go through what I like about the photograph. We'll go through uh, each of the elements, 4 specific elements: composition, lighting, prop styling, and food styling. How in each of those photographs they've used those aspects of photography. So we'll go through that, and then at the end of all of this, I'll come back and give you some takeaways for you to improve your next salad photo. So let's get started. So this is our first photograph, and this is a watermelon orzo salad. Now I didn't know this until recently, but there is a website called Panera at Home, and it's actually Panera's own website where they give recipes for salads or for meals that are similar to Panera's own meals. So this is from the website, and this is really very clearly you can see that this is a watermelon salad, bunch of watermelons in the plate itself, and then you can see that main ingredient here being the watermelon. Now, a couple of things that I like about this photograph. Of course, it's different in many ways. For instance, the placement itself is quite different of the bowl. It's right in the center, and then you see the colors that have been used, also somewhat different. So we're going to talk about that in detail here, and really as we go through this photograph, I'm going to deconstruct, and I'm going to specifically talk about 4 different aspects of this: composition, lighting, props that have been used, and then the food styling aspect of this. So let's get started, and we'll start with the composition. And when we talk about composition, I want to touch upon 3 specific things. One is the camera angle. So where is the camera reference to the surface? Second is the subject placement with reference to the frame. And then third is just the overall color. And it kind of will get into a little bit of prop styling discussion there as well. So when we first start thinking about composition, the first thing that comes to mind is, well, what is the best camera angle? And that best camera angle, like in the post that was about the photographs and how to photograph salads like Panera. In that photograph of spinach salad, it was spinach power salad. You must have noticed that that was like we talked, it was top down, and the reason for that was it was a bowl, and so taking a photograph from any lower angle would have obstructed the view. Now in this case, this is a plate, so we don't have that problem, and top down may not have been a more flattering angle. Might have been a different angle, might have been a maybe a little less visually appealing, but we don't know. So what we have in front of us is a plate that is at, the camera was, I would say, somewhere in the 70 degree to the surface, and that's how this has been taken. The photograph has been taken. Then from a placement of subject, now this is where it gets really interesting. Typically we all read about the rule of thirds, and they say that the rule of thirds would mean that the subject, which is this whole salad plate, should have been at the thirds. But I don't know if when you looked at this photograph where your eye went. So mine actually went to this point. you see these watermelons. That's where my eye went. And in fact, what I also noticed was this actually was creating a circle. I don't know if you noticed this, but it's kind of a circle here. So that's where my eye went. So when we talk about rule of thirds and the placement of the subject, really I interpret the rule of thirds as not necessarily not necessarily the subject needs to be on the thirds, but in that subject, what is the one point where you want your viewer to focus, viewer to look at? That's at the thirds, and let's see if that's true in this case. So I'm gonna divide this photograph first horizontally at thirds. That's about that, and we'll move that here. I think that's about the third of the way through, maybe somewhat. Okay, and then the next one would be just to start dividing this in the thirds, and I think so if we divide this by 3, this I think that should be somewhere around here, maybe somewhere around here, maybe somewhere around here. Okay, so you see that this is very close to that thirds. It's not right here in the middle, it's more towards this. Could this have been a different photograph if this point was further up? Maybe, but that's something we could try. I mean, we could crop this and say, okay, if this was at the thirds, there we go, that's the thirds. Does this become more appealing? And let's see that. Maybe it does, but then we lose the watermelon at the back. Anyway, so that's from subject placement. They have placed this, which is where the visual attention is going, and that is because that's at the thirds. Now, the third thing in composition I want to talk about is the use of color. And watermelon being red obviously attracts, is very punchy, very bright, and it adds a lot of pop in the photograph. So if that's your main ingredient, that is red in color, you don't want things that are competing to that color. And so that's why you see the background and the napkin here, towel here, and as well as the plate, and quite honestly the spoons here. So all are really dull colors, really colors that will not compete with the watermelon. So that's about the composition. We talked about camera angle, talked about subject placement, talked about the color. Now let's jump to lighting. And really the question that we are trying to answer here is, where is the light coming from? What is the light source? And where is that light source? Can we find out how many light sources are there? So let's try to go through that. So the question, when you're trying to find out what the light source, or where rather the light source is, what you need to look at is the shadows. And these are the shadows here, and this is the shadow, and right here in the bowl itself there is a shadow, and you can look at this shadow and you can look at this shadow too, right? So those are some of the places where we prominently see some shadow. Now of course here the shadow is more, I mean it's lighter. Here is the dark, I mean this is the darkest, this is pretty dark. So what does this tell us? Well, obviously if the shadows are here, the light is coming from here, right? It's coming from here, and this is a little lighter on the shadows here are lighter, so you could say that then in this case the light source must be somewhere here. And then the other thing would be, are there more than one light sources? In other words, is there a reflector that is being used? Is there something that's reflecting the light? And because of this shadow that's so light here, as well as shadow that's lighter than this side, I tend to believe that there is probably a reflector that's actually somewhere here, perhaps. Yeah, somewhere here. Maybe there is a reflector that's reflecting the light. So that is now the lighting. Helps us understand how this was lit, and also helps us understand looking at the shadows. All right, so let's now move to, okay, so now we talked about where the light source was, looking at the shadows. And just a quick tip here, if you look at some of these details in the plate itself, if you look at this, for example, here, and you look at this, in these places where you're seeing that there is some shadow, there is also, so you could for instance look at this here at this point and say that there are some shadows are not that dark. Similarly at the point here, right? So those are some ways by understanding and learning about shadows. And of course there is a lot more to say on the shadows, just in interest of time, just trying to keep this video, not make this an hour-long video. So those will be some things that we should think about when we are deconstructing a photograph. Now let's move to the prop styling, and kind of we talked about the prop styling, that the props that have been used here are very subtle, very like I said in the post again, that the goal of the prop is not so much to make itself visible. In fact, a good prop is something that's invisible but then also adds some character to the photograph, and that is perfect. This plate, for example, is perfect example of that, where your eye goes here. I mean, it certainly adds a lot of story, a lot of character to the photograph, but it is not overpowering the salad itself. The colors of the prop, so before we jump there, what are the props? How many can you count here, right? So we talked about the plate, that's 1, the background 2, the spoons 3, the towel, that's 4, and this board here 5. And you can say that this is, the watermelon is really a prop, so maybe there is that too. So all these props, the goal being to support the photograph and make it more visually appealing. Then let's jump to food styling. And food styling for salad photos is really challenging. Like I said in the post again, that the reason it's challenging, it is because there is just too much going on. There is too much to think about because there are many ingredients. So in this salad itself, how many can you count? So take 10 seconds and try to count them. Yeah. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so here's 1, here's 2, here's 3, here's 4, 5, and 6, and 7. So at the minimum, at least those are the ones that I can see. The watermelon, I think this is zucchini, or cucumber, could be cucumber. This is feta cheese, I think. I think this is the orzo, onion, mint, and there are some nuts here as well. Now, I'm not able to see the dressing here, but that may be just because they have not put it in. Either it's not part of the salad or that it is mixed thoroughly, unlike our previous photo where they had intentionally shown the dressing. So the point is, once again, that when you're thinking about food styling for a salad, you have to think about what are the ingredients, what are my key ingredients. In this case, the key ingredient, this is a watermelon orzo salad, so of course orzo and watermelon. And visually, is that doing it justice to the recipe, because of those are the two main ingredients. So I'm going to say that, yeah, those are those two, watermelon and orzo, take most amount of space on this plate, and so they are doing good justice to the salad. And at the same time, all the other ingredients are very visually, you can count them, you can see them. The second thing in this whole food styling for salad challenge, the challenge here is that you don't want for a salad to be visually appealing. You want it more to be something that you would eat, something that has moisture, and something that's not too dry. In this case, because this is watermelon, you could see the moisture here. You could also add moisture as part of the styling. You can drop some water, make it more moist. So those are a couple of things that, from a deconstruction of this photograph, come to mind. So we talked about composition. In that, we looked at camera angle, subject placement, and color. Then we talked about lighting. We looked at the shadows, and we said, where is the light source? We looked at prop styling, and then finally we looked at the food styling. So that is the deconstruction of this photograph. Now let's move to the next photo.